There are four types of reading scales that every reader should know: skimming, scanning, attentive reading, and speed reading. So, skimming is technique that allows you to quickly read through the text and pick out the main idea. This is useful skill when you need to get an overview of text or when you are looking for specific information. So, scanning is technique that allows you to quickly read through the text and find specific information. This is a useful skill when you need to find specific information in text. Intensive reading is a technique that allows you to read the text slowly and carefully in order to understand all the details and noise. This is a useful skill when you need to understand the text in depth. So for extensive reading or speed reading is a technique that allows you to read the text quickly. This is a useful skill when you need to read a lot of information in a short amount of time. So let's start by applying this mode of reading by using some articles in electrical engineering. So imagine you are browsing through a business magazine's technology section and you come across the following article. You decide to skim through it to quickly grasp or explore the main points without reading every details. So I try to read it and then we will discuss about it. Okay, so calculating the capacity of an electricity grid, the amount of energy it needs to supply to users, may seem simple. Just added up the power supplied over a given period of time to give the total amount consumed by users, then divided the cumulative amount of power used during the whole period by the number of hours in the period. The result is an average level of consumption per hours. But there is one problem with this method, and it's a major one. The rate of power consumption, the amount that's being consumed at a particular moment, is not constant. In other words, consumption does not stay at the same level all the time. So electricity supply requirements cannot simply be averaged out over time. People use more power at certain times of day and less at other times, which means that demand for power fluctuates significantly. Generally, it rises to a maximum in the evening, which means peak demand is at evening meal times and falls to its lowest level during the night. This fluctuation or oscillations are so big that at peak times consumption can be twice as high as it is during peak. It is during peak is brief. The grid will only run to capacity at or close to its maximum capability for a few moments each day. This means most of time it has a significant spare capacity. So the article here discusses the challenge of calculating the capacity of an electricity grid. So it starts by explaining seemingly simple method for calculating energy supply needs based on time period. Okay, however, it highlights a significant problem with this approach: the fluctuation in the power consumption throughout the day. As you skim through the article, you pick up on key phrases and sentences. So you for example, calculating the capacity of an electricity grid may seem simple. The rate of power consumption is not constant. Uh, People use more power at certain times of day. Demand for power fluctuates significantly with a peak demand in the evening. So at peak times, consumption can be twice as high as during off-peak times. So by using or by scheming, you quickly gather the main idea. The challenge of accurately calculating electricity grid capacity due to oscillation power or fluctuating power demand. This allows you to decide if you want to read the article in more detail or if you have enough information for current needs. Scheming is an efficient way to extract key ideas from a text without reading every word. Okay, let's apply scanning. So imagine you are researching energy efficiency in electricity distribution and you come across the following text. You need to quickly find information about the energy loss in typical grid and the efficiency of local produced electricity. So let's start by reading. So I'm reading quickly. Okay, I did not use skimming or scanning. Okay, I try to read it, then applied this mode of reading. Okay, power lines and transformers are relatively inefficient, wasting energy mainly by giving off heat. As a result, there is a difference between input, the amount of energy put into the grid by power station, and output, the amount used by consumers. One typical grid. The difference between input and output is about 7%. There is a 7% energy loss. But if electricity is generated at the place where it's consumed and not transmitted through the long distance power lines, this loss can be avoided. Consequently, locally produced electricity is more efficient than grid supplied power, as there is a gain in efficiency of around 7%. So as you scan through the text, you quickly identify the specific information you were looking for on a typical grid. The difference between input and output is about 7%. There is a 7% energy loss. Okay, so consequently, locally produced electricity is more efficient than grid supplied power, as there is a gain in efficiency of around 7%. By scanning, you efficiently locate the facts about energy loss in the grid and the efficiency gain of locally produced electricity. This allows you to extract the required information without reading the entire text in detail. So scanning is a valuable skill when you need to pinpoint specific details within a text. So let's apply intensive reading. Suppose you are conducting research on solar power generation and its connection to the electricity grid. You come across the following text and you want to deeply comprehend all the details it provides about the relationship between solar panels and the grid. So let's read it, then we are going to apply intensive reading. Okay, one way to produce power locally is with photovoltaic, often called solar panels. However, many PV installations are stay connected to electricity grid. This means that when there is a surplus power, when electricity is being produced by the solar panels faster than it is needed in the home, it is fed into the grid. If consumption exceeds production, if electricity is being used in the home faster than the solar panels can produce it, then power is taken from the grid. Homes with low consumption may therefore become net producer of power, producing more electricity than they consume. So, in intensive reading, you read the text slowly and carefully, paying close attention to the details. Okay, for example, you notice that PV or photovoltaic PV are a way to produce power locally. Okay, you learn that many PV installations are stay connected to the electricity grid. Also, you understand the dynamics of surplus power being fed into the grid and power being taken from the grid when consumption exceeds production. Okay, you realize that homes with low consumption might become net producer of power. So by engaging in intensive reading, you gain a thorough understanding of the text's content, allowing you to grasp or explore all the details and complexity. This approach is valuable when you need a deep comprehension of complex material. Okay, so let's apply extensive reading or speed reading. Okay, so in speed reading, you aim to read quickly while maintaining comprehension, which is particularly valuable when you have a large volume of material to cover a limited time. So here is an example in the context of electrical principle for used as extensive reading. So the amount of current flowing through a circuit will partly depend on the electromotive force of the electrical supply. Electromotive force is measured in volts and is generally called voltage. So the voltage depends on the strength of electricity supply. In the diagram above, adding a second cell would supply a higher voltage. The amount of current will also depend on electrical resistance. This value in ohms 0 is a measure of how easily current can flow through the conductor and components in circuit. For example, a lamp creates resistance because the filament the metal wire inside it is very thin. This limits the amount of current that can flow. Resistance also depends on the material used as conductors. For example, copper has a low resistance and so is good conductor. Materials with very high resistance, such as plastic, are called electrical insulator. Only very high voltages cause current to flow through them. Materials that are good insulator are used to insulate conductors. An example is plastic insulation around electrical wires. This stops people from touching the conductor and, if it is leave, from getting a dangerous electric shock. So in speed reading, you read swiftly while still exploring the main ideas. So you understand that current in circuit depend on both electromotive force and electrical resistance. You know that electromotive forces is measured in volts and is often referred to as voltage. You recognize that voltage related to the strength of electrical supply. You comprehend that adding a second cell can increase voltage. You grasp or explore that electrical resistance measured in ohms affects how is the current flow through the conductors and components. You see how resistance is influenced by factors like filament thickness and conductor materials. You learn also about electrical insulator and how they prevent current flow unless exposed to very high voltages. You understand that insulator like plastic are used to protect conductors and prevent electric shock. So in this way, speed reading enables you to cover a substantial amount of material efficiently while maintaining comprehension of key concepts.